Peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom. Welcome, 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 everybody. We are back. And our conversation for tonight, we're talking about the math of liberation. And we're going to be looking at Carl Stokes from Cleveland, Ohio. We're going to look at Maynard Jackson from Atlanta, Georgia, and our favorite DC man, the great, the mayor for life, Marion Barry.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I mean, he is the brother they got on tape now. Trying to choke somebody.
Now, when we look at, first of all, politics, most people, Doc, I would consider to say most of, or maybe not most, but a lot of our people, I don't believe, understand politics.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get in later into the program where it was said during Maynard Jackson time, and I think maybe he was the one that said it. Then, after you do your street marching and all that, the only thing that you have left of a civilized time period to try to change things is politics, is voting your self-interest, And you'll still hear people to this day say, I'm not voting. I'm not getting nothing out of voting. Is it that what is it about voting that they truly don't understand, you think, Doc?
We like to see a instantaneous payoff, a major bump in our personal lives. We saw that with Obama, that there seemed to be an expectation amongst Black common folk, as well as Black folk who were in leadership positions. I'm thinking especially about Cornel West and Tavis Smiley, that they would receive some payoff for delivering the Black vote. They wanted a cabinet level position once Obama got in. And I remember Minister Farrakhan weighing in on that and basically saying what we have been for Obama's campaign are like the booster rockets that you would see on the space shuttle. We got him up into the stratosphere, but there comes a time when we had to fall off and fall back to the ground because our job has been done. Our people, by and large, because we haven't been treated fairly or justly within this nation when it comes to the casting of a vote, the electing of an official, either the one that we voted for or the opponent, and then the receiving of some goods. We have always been the least tailored to population. And by being the least tailored to and considered population, it leads you to a jaded position. And I would argue that sort of sullenness that comes with not ever receiving any benefits is multiplied and replicated across economics, social, every factor and aspect of the nation. So we're not seeing a payoff from that. So what is the use in even doing that? Little do they know that although you may see negligible payoff by electing a Jasmine Crockett, by electing a Obama, you're going to receive a massive immediate payback if a person who is 100% against even your existence in this nation is elected. That's going to hit you fast and swift. So to even hold the front, you need to get people in there who are looking at the world through your lens, who have like interest as you do. Failure to do that is the equivalent of slashing your wrist. You're going to bleed out slowly, but you're going to bleed out nevertheless.
And so, Doc, when we look at our three politicians that we're going to deal with tonight,
Mhm.
Maynard Barry and what's his name? Stokes.
Carl Stokes.
Carl Stokes. Would you say that they were the best of the crop at that time?
What do you mean the best of the crop?
Like
Compared to who else?
Anybody else that we had at that time?
I'm not going to say that they were the best of the crop. I will say for sure, looking at a Stokes and looking at Maynard Jackson in particular, they were the ones that developed very interesting political campaigns and political machines. Both of those individuals remind me, ironically, of Richard Daley in Chicago. That this isn't a singular or one community, especially with Carl Stokes, action. That this was in many ways a multiracial push to get this man into office for some reasons. But they're the head of a machine. They benefited from a machine. And you have to remember that this is a very interesting moment. You look at the dates here, you have Stokes in 67, Maynard Jackson 74, and Marion Barry coming in 79. Look at what is happening historically during that moment. 67, you have the introduction of Black Power a couple years before in not Money, Mississippi. It lose my mind right now. I'm getting old. Where SNCC debuts Black Greenwood, Mississippi, where it's going to, in many ways, split the movement because white folk are going to embrace identity politics very hard. And they're dealing with feminism. They're dealing with LGBTQ. They're dealing with the anti-Vietnam War movement. And the nation is in many ways tired during that time. They're wore out from all these social movements. And you see a sort of a abandonment of American central cities by anyone who can escape it, including Black folk. So the late 60s, the early 1970s leads to a concentrated Black population in America's central cities. We were talking before we began the show about Richard Hatcher from Gary, Indiana. So you have Cleveland, you have Gary, you have Atlanta, you're going to have Newark eventually, you're going to have DC. These are, to borrow one of the phraseologies of Parliament, these are chocolate cities. And so America, by that time, by the 1970s, has really converted into the idea of chocolate cities and vanilla suburbs, as George Clinton put it. So they're the right men at the right time, I would say. They're heading Black cities. Make no mistake about it.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent. So we're going to look at our first one, Carl Stokes, the mayor of Cleveland. And so we said Carl Stokes was a groundbreaking Black mayor who pushed hard for Black political power, jobs, and urban reform in Cleveland. But he was worn down by the white backlash, police conflict, urban unrest, and the limits of being one Black man leading a divided city. Even before we get more into that part, but just thinking about it, so I would think, I don't know, but his city council was all white or majority white. They wasn't Black.
I would imagine so. Yeah. Because you would have to think that the city council is going to be elected from different areas of the city. One of the things that Carl Stokes has working in his favor is that the mayoral race is going to be predicated and determined by the entire city, not just little segments of the city. But Cleveland has many, I would call them suburban areas within the city. You have Cleveland Heights, you have Shaker Heights, you have a lot of heights that are involved there. So it's not a one large metropolis, I would say. So I would imagine that that would be true of the city council.
Mm. Wow. And it says, under what he did great, became one of the first Black mayors of a major U.S. city, Cleveland, 1967, symbolizing a new era of Black political power, only a few years after the Civil Rights Act. Open city hall jobs to Black people and women, breaking up a white-dominated patronage system and giving real access to city employment and influence. So with that, Doc, would you say he opened up the middle class to Black people in the city?
Certainly a pathway to a middle class lifestyle, and at the very beginning, when I made an insinuation about Richard Daley, that's the exact same thing that Daley did. The Daley machine in Chicago, Daley was able to get Black, white, Polish, every immigrant group to buy into his vision because he was going to parcel out some benefits to them. And so when you're looking at a Black man seeking to do that, you're going to have, number one, horrific backlash, but also number two, Black folk are going to somewhat love you for it. And yet at the exact same time, they're going to grow to hate you as well, because you can't be, and this is the problem that Barack Hussein Obama had to deal with. He was not the president of Black America. He was the president of the United States. Carl Stokes is going to be the mayor of all of Cleveland, not just Black Cleveland. So there are going to be some issues. There's a yin and a yang, a positive and a negative in regards to what it is that he's doing.
Wow. And then it also says that he pushed Black economic empowerment by insisting that Black business get city contracts and that banks lend to Black-owned companies, directly fighting economic exclusion. And if I'm correct, I believe he was the one who told the banks, if you don't start lending to Blacks, then we're going to withdraw city funds from your bank.
Quite possibly. But see, the thing is that if you put it within the proper historical context, you're dealing with a very interesting moment in time. You're post LBJ Civil Rights Act 64, you're post 65 LBJ 65 Voting Rights Act. And you're dealing with, and this is the exact same thing that Maynard Jackson is going to deal with the building of the airport in Atlanta. You're dealing with a significant thrust towards what I would call reparations for Black folk. We rarely talk about it that way, but the truth of the matter is that that's what we're really talking about, reparations. When you're looking at the late 1960s and through the early 1970s, you're looking at what amounts to as reparations. We refer to it as affirmative action. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. says this in one of his writings. He says, "It would seem to me that a nation that has done so much against the Negro for so long would not have much of a problem with doing something positive for the Negro, at least for a period of time." That's reparations. That was our reparations, the affirmative action movement. However, it will be derailed within a decade's time, because our political leadership is going to stupidly allow affirmative action, the umbrella of affirmative action, to be spread, not just to cover Black folk, but to cover any group that is not white and male. So you're going to see those reparations quickly taken back from you. These guys are dealing with that. The idea that if you want a city contract, you're going to have to outsource, subcontract, whatever word you want to use, a certain amount of work. Maynard Jackson, he came up with a formula that here you have a situation, if Atlanta proper is 60% black and you took your business out of Atlanta proper and put it into one of the suburban areas, you're going to have to subcontract 60% of that work, because he understood, and Carl Stokes understood, that what we needed was to have we need to have dollars in black hands that can circulate within Black America, and hope and pray that our people are savvy enough and economically educated enough to understand the worth and utility of circulating that dollar within their own community, and they don't just allow those dollars to fly out like pigeons.
Wow, very, very interesting. And they also said that he launched the Cleveland Now program to pull in about $177 million from federal, state, local, and private sources for jobs, housing, daycare, health, and recreation in neglected Black neighborhoods. It's one thing that I hear a lot, where they say you can't have money targeting a specific neighborhood. You can't have money targeting a Black neighborhood. You have to have it targeting all neighborhoods that are low down, that are not in good repair. But it seems from this program that he targeted Black neighborhoods.
But once again, that's a different time. That's a you're dealing with a moment where parts of America are very leftist and are having very heartfelt conversations about racial inequality and the need for justice, restorative justice. Those conversations are going to, in many ways, abruptly end when you see the hippies reaching the age where they're inheriting their father's business, and many of their priorities are going to sort of conform to keeping that money within the family.
All right, excellent. And so then also says he enforced housing codes, demolished some slums, and helped build thousands of new public housing units, trying to attack urban decay at its roots. So it seems to be like he was really trying to restore the places where our people lived.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about directing government dollars for a certain demographic, I don't think that you would be able to do that on the Black tip, if you know what I mean. But I do believe that you could really concentrate those dollars on slum areas, on impoverished areas, these sort of I don't know what they call them, the empowerment zones and what have you. I think that you could do it that way then, as well as now. It's not even today, and we're dealing with this as a nation, and we'll continue to deal with it. But the idea of tax cuts for the rich, how is that any different from the idea of what Stokes and Jackson and those guys did? You're elected, and you're going to arrange the rules and the laws and the bylaws and regulations to benefit a group that you want to benefit. And therein lies the the worth and the utility of why people need to be involved in the not only voting but the political process in general.
Definitely. And then it says he became a national voice on environmental justice after the 1969 Cuyahoga River fire, using his platform to push for clean water and bring attention to industrial pollution affecting urban communities. So he
I mean,
sounds.
yeah, I mean, you would have to. That doesn't sound very black, but take a look at Flint, Michigan, and see what was happening there. You don't have to address it as well. We getting ready to get clean water for black folk. No, what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean up the water. You don't even need to mention race because everyone understands why the water needs to be cleaned up, and they also implicitly are going to understand where is this flammable liquid, who's ingesting it. It's very clear who's ingesting it, whose children are ingesting it.
Right.
And so there you go. And I think that therein lies the ability to really address some things without alienating white power brokers or the white mass.
Definitely. And then it also says that outside of the mayor's office, he kept breaking barriers as the first Black TV anchorman in New York City, and later served as a judge and a U.S. ambassador, showing he kept reinventing himself in the public life. That's very, very interesting. And one thing that I've noticed by studying these guys is after their political run was over, they didn't have anything to fall back on, like they create their own business and, or the Black people that they help create business, that he can go to them and do more business or something. But they didn't do that. And it was very shocking for, when we get into Jackson, Maynard Jackson, he actually had to leave Atlanta to go to New York to get a job there because nobody would hire him in Atlanta.
Well, that's a lot of that is punishment because we were not there. There's something to be said for individuals who have been privileged their entire lives. If you've been privileged your entire life, to go to being treated normally, average, like other people, feels like abuse because you're used to getting the fat part of it. Whatever scraps are left, you give that to the other folk. You give that over there to the Black community, whatever's left. But let me get, the lion's share of, the choices, meats and cuts off of this. And when that doesn't occur, bitterness sets in because people are counting how much money, not how much they're making, how much they're not getting, because you decided to implement some policies that did not make me favorite status. So when your time is up, we're going to see what they got for you. All these people that you worked to uplift, let's see what they got for you. Because if they don't have the ability to take care of you, look here, bro, we're going to show you. And there is a way, let's be very clear. There's a way of freezing you out. And there's also something that there's a lot that can be said for the idea of the very people that you helped going off to another game because now somebody else is in power and they're over there trying to curry favor with them. And if you can read the room, you recognize that, Mayor Jackson, he up out of here, and you hear people saying, well, we're getting ready to do him in. So if you want to curry favor with the new power brokers, you're going to join on and deal with that as well.
Wow. That's something. That is really something. And so we're going to look at some of the issues he faced He inherited a city already in economic decline,
Mhm.
with industry leaving, a shrinking tax base, and deep segregation, which made his goals hard to fund and to sustain. He tried to balance the conservative white interests and the demands of the Black community.
Mhm.
But both sides often felt he was giving too much to the other side. There, Doc, there's no win-win in that, is it?
None.
You're either one or the other.
None. You can't serve two masters. And for a black elected official, if you don't alienate in a major way and work towards uplifting black folk, once again, it's the Obama phenomenon where black folk behaved as if Barack and Michelle was going to be down at the White House handing out $1,000 checks to them. When that didn't happen, they're upset. And when they see you meeting with white folk who they know have done them in historically, they're going to say, look, there you go, right there. There you go. And on the other hand, you have white folk who are used to getting the lion's share of everything, who are pissed because you might just be siphoning off 10 to 15% of the city budget to uplift a slum or what have you. That's going to piss them off. And it's just what it is. It's the nature of what you signed up for. And there is no win-win because you're not going to be reelected because it takes dollars to be elected. So those who have the money are not going to give you that money. That's number one. Second thing that you're going to have to deal with, and that's the rich white folk. Second part you got to deal with is black folk who are going to say, well, I went out and voted last time, and what'd I get? I ain't getting nothing. I ain't going down there again. What you think, I'm some type of fool?
Mm-hmm.
So you're a doomed man. You're a doomed man. Regardless of what you do, what you say, it's not going to work out in your favor.
What would be the realistic expectations of a Black mayor or a Black governor or Black president toward the Black community? What would be a realistic expectation that they should accept?
That he removes the barriers that have been constructed for Black participation in local government. And that means it's business people working within City Hall and what have you. To remove the more prominent obstructions to Black folks' participation would be a hell of a thing. Now, the problem with that is quite simply, they got to bring something to the equation as well. They have to bring skills and qualifications and capabilities. And if they don't have that, there's nothing realistically that he can do. And as we both know, that's a long, elongated process to become certified to be an accountant, to be certified to be a city anything. It takes a while for you to get those. You don't just grab someone off of the street and make them a city manager. They need to know how things work. Otherwise, you're dooming yourself because whatever department they're put in charge of is not going to work efficiently and not going to serve the interest of the people. And how do you get those qualifications? How do you get that experience? You get it because you've been working for previous administrations. So I would argue that removing the more obvious and significant barriers would be something that's realistic. The idea of them just hiring you because you're Black, that's when you're raising your expectations to a point where you're going to be disappointed.
Wow. So a big thing happened during his term as mayor. In 1968, the Glenville shootout between Black nationalists and the police led to days of rioting, deaths of 6 Black people and 3 white officers, and massive property damage. Mm-hmm. After credible reports of racist retaliation by police, he made the controversial decision to pull white officers out of the Glenville neighborhood, which enraged much of the police force and many white residents.
Mm-hmm.
Funding for the Cleveland Now became tainted when it was discovered that some weapons used by the Black nationalist group in Glenville had been bought with the grant money connected to that program,
Mm-hmm.
undercutting white support for his anti-poverty agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a major thing to tell white police officers, y'all cannot go in to that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
That to me, that took some guts.
Well, it takes guts, but it also raises this very interesting question: whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? Because you can't be on both sides. So whose side are you on? Are you on a side of law and order? Are you on a side of the city, or are you on that other side? Because in many ways, if you want to stretch what happened there to its breaking point, you could forge an argument, a very savvy argument, if you have people who want to believe that Carl Stokes was behind that, or had some knowledge about it. You could stretch it to say, well, this is what they did. They gave grant money, and they understood that grant money would be utilized to buy weapons that would be used against our law enforcement officers. So our government dollars were utilized to harm and shoot police officers. I didn't vote for that. Ain't that one of their political phraseologies? I didn't vote for that. Exactly. And you can clearly see that you're between a rock and a hard place. One of the things that we don't talk about much when we talk about that series of Black mayors who are elected, and Carl Stokes is a wonderful example of what happens. One of the things that we don't talk about is every one of those cities that elected a Black man was in a worse financial position by the time he left than when he arrived. And it wasn't due to his ineptitude, but it's due to white flight, because white folk are going to concede the central cities to you. Okay, that's what y'all want to do. That's how y'all want to do it. We leaving. And when we leave, we're taking our businesses and our money and our taxable income with us. That's one issue that you got to deal with. Okay. But you also are going to have to deal with a series of other issues that flow from that. And it is an absence and lack of jobs. So now you're developing a community or several communities that for lack of a better way of looking at it or even discussing it, you're creating a Cabrini Green. You're concentrating Black poverty. And one of the things that we know for sure is that people are gonna eat. Come hook or crook, come, whether rhyme or crime, I'm gonna get mine. And then you throw in there the introduction of it's in many ways the early 1970s in general, all the way through the 1980s, is the perfect storm for the development of Black urban blight. It isn't that because these people are Black, because let's situate it within what actually happened. You have a moment where Black folk are actually exiting predominantly white institutions now. You had the Brown case in 54. So by the late 60s, these Black folk have matriculated through there, and their values are different than previous Black people's values, because they have different opportunities. They have opportunities to go work at IBM to make a shitload of money. And the idea of buying back the hood, that didn't cross our minds back then.
Right.
What we're looking at doing is integrating out there in the woodlands, integrating somewhere with the oaks, Running Deer Lane, something like that. We're not looking at buying back the hood. We're trying to escape it. So you have a sensible Black rising middle class that are going to try to leave their roots, and they do leave their roots. Who does that leave behind? Their family members who are the hardcore unemployables. You leave back recreational drug use, and then let's not forget that a big part of Vietnam, a big part of funk. I'm a big Parliament guy. Okay, is drugs. So you're dealing with the introduction and the advent of IV drug use within Black America. You're dealing with the introduction of what they referred to initially as GRIDS, gay-related immune deficiency syndrome. And those early discussions were that this was God's judgment and only gay people could get it. You only got it through gay sex. And here our community is struggling, highly addicted to drugs, nowhere to turn. And so the HIV or AIDS thing is going to hit us full bloom, full force. So, and then to make, and if you look at Hatcher in Gary, you look at Stokes in Cleveland, these are Rust Belt cities. So when the steel industry takes an economic downturn, what are you going to do? Your tax base is going to dwindle, and the white folk who have sizable money that could be taxed, they've left. And of course, by 1980, we're going to have Reaganomics.
Now, Doc, I want to ask you, because you just sparked my mind when you said that about the industries. America currently is at war, and they don't have no new ships. Because our industry-based business are gone, shipbuilding, they used to build ships down here and up here in Philly, and it's gone now. Those things, I guess, when they were going out of business or whatever, they never saw a day coming where, hey, we may lose all these ships, and now we need more ships. We ain't got them.
No, but I think that if you frame it correctly, you're not talking. See, you're speaking about the steel industry and shipbuilding and all these other things that are outgrowths of steel, as if these are nationalized industries, and they're not. So the idea that they've gone out of business is not true. What they've done is they moved their operations to more profitable areas, one, but also my father's a steel worker, and I worked in a steel mill for several years. The steel mill that I worked in, the same one my father worked in, and it's representative of what it is that I'm actually talking about. I can't name it for you, because it transferred ownership so many times. It was Detroit Empire Steel at one moment. It was Armco when I was there. So there's changes in ownership and things like that going on. But these people are actually, right now, that mill makes 10 times the amount of steel that it made when I was there. Okay, 10 times. Now, if you hear that it's making 10 times the amount of steel, your mind would immediately go to what? It hired 10 times the amount of men. No, because now it is all mechanized. It is technology behind it. They employ less than 10% of the same amount of people, and they're 10 times more productive. Now, is that progress? There's an argument that there's progress, but is that, what is that? Because who's going to purchase your goods once you produce them. That's an issue. That's a major issue. So it's we can't look at it as if these are nationalized industries and the government shut them down. No,
Mhm.
these are private companies that have made alterations to stay quote unquote competitive. And sometimes the most competitive thing you can do is send it overseas, or quite possibly allow somebody else to buy it out. And we saw that recently with, I want to say it was a Japanese company that was buying one of the mills, and it turned into a very big thing because people are saying quite simply, what is it that happens if we need steel? And they decide that they're not going to produce it.
Mm.
So it's a very
Mm.
complex, intricate dance that needed to happen,
Mhm.
but it's a dance that to the chagrin of most Americans, that occurs without the input of a Carl Stokes, without a Maynard Jackson. They have nothing to do with this, because these
Mm.
people are in many ways looking for tax breaks. They're looking to put their companies in certain places. My hometown, Mansfield, Ohio, we principally had two primary industries. One was a steel mill,
Mhm.
and the other one was a General Motors Corporation. The steel mill is basically, it's still up and running, but it's not hiring the same amount of people. And General Motors shut down, gave
Mm.
gave its workers a choice. Either you can move to a new plant, or you can take this buyout. And many
Mm.
people took the buyout. And of course, you take a lump sum of money, and within 2 to 3 years, you're dead broke.
Right.
And
Mhm.
so many of these people, and let's be very clear, this really happened with Maynard Jackson in Atlanta.
Mhm.
Many of the people who went to Atlanta, one of the jokes of Atlanta for the longest time was that nobody in Atlanta is from Atlanta.
Mhm.
When Maynard Jackson won, it was a sign for many people that Atlanta is now a black city. And if you wanted to try to make it, you could go to Atlanta because they had all of these opportunities. Now, Atlanta is a wonderful city for certain types of black folk,
Mhm.
but for some other black folk, Atlanta is a rough road to hoe, and that's a very difficult thing for our people to understand. So, on the one hand, Maynard Jackson or Carl Stokes would be having a dwindling tax base,
Mhm.
and yet at the exact same time, their social services bill is going to skyrocket, because you have people who are coming there who are who are system intensive. They're going to get on public assistance. They're going to get on welfare. They're going to get on Section 8. They're going to get on WIC. Where's that money coming from?
Mm.
In so many American cities, I'm in Houston. Houston is going through this right now. There is a humongous influx of people coming to Houston every single week. And it's been happening like this for decades, apparently. We've somehow became the surprise destination for spring break for black folk this year.
Mm.
For some reason, we ain't got no beach or nothing here. Go down there to that dirty beach down there in Galveston if you want to, I guess. Um, but these people who are coming here, what are they going to do? If they can't get a job, if they don't have a job already, they're going to ultimately end up on public assistance. And the idea of a skyrocketing public assistance bill, social services bill, combining with the harsh and undeniable reality that the city is overcrowded,
Mm.
we in trouble. And to sort of make that even worse, the pension system of city workers it did Detroit in, and it's doing Houston in. That
Mm.
the system for city workers and what have you, they're living longer. They're living too long. and it's leading to phenomenal problems.
Mm.
Phenomenal.
Wow. So are you thinking that Houston is going to become another Detroit with the abandoned houses and all that? Is that what you're seeing?
What's happening in Houston is that the central city areas, the fifth ward, they don't even call the fifth ward anymore down here. It's called the economic corridor, which
Mm.
gives you a heck of a hint of who named it and who's going, what's going to happen there. The third ward is now called sections of it is called Midtown. Okay, it's no longer Freedmanstown. It's
Mm.
Midtown. So you
Mm.
have a pressure, just as we saw in the 1970s, of white flight going out. You're
Mm-hmm.
seeing a white rush back in. That's the best way to describe it. So that now within the central loop, Houston has three loops, but
Mm-hmm.
within the central loop, you're going to see a lot of white folk, and you're already seeing a lot of white folk here. The white folk have gentrified Houston.
Mm.
Okay, so now they don't have to really deal with you. They are pushing you out, and black folk don't have the money to largely stay. Some of them don't. Many of them have made the strategic decision for whatever reason, their own personal preference or what have you. They're going to Sugarland, they're going to Pearland, they're going to these suburban areas and kind of conceding a lot of the central cities to um, more wealthy and gentrifying white folk. There are like River Oaks. There's some areas here where it's millionaires row,
Mm.
but you would be undone to see that these are within the city. They're not outside the city like many people would think. They're in
Wow.
the city. And so everything that, I mean, it could be a very nice life where you could find yourself situated in a position where you're 20 minutes away from Reliance Stadium where the Houston Texans play. And at the same time, you're only 10 minutes away from the Toyota Center where the Rockets play.
Mm.
And it's maybe a 3-minute, 4-minute walk from the Toyota Center to Minute Maid Park where the Houston Astros play. So if you have the money, you would be able to get a place there somewhere in that arena and literally not even need a car anymore because now they
Mhm.
had a metro rail. There are parts of Houston that, especially Midtown, that if
Mhm.
you didn't know any better, you'd swear you were in San Francisco or somewhere without
Oh.
the huge homeless population. Because Houston does a very, 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 very good job of tucking the homeless away.
Mm. Doc, I was thinking at one time we had doctors, teachers, lawyers, all of us in the same neighborhood.
Uh-huh.
But then they moved out of the neighborhood.
I mean,
What?
that's the benefit of racial segregation that we
But
didn't recognize.
but isn't that the genesis of the communities breaking apart?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's no analysis needed there. Just yeah, because you have to think that the teacher who's been to school, got a degree, and what have you, she or he didn't live on the same street as maybe the sanitation worker,
Mm.
but that teacher had a vested interest in the sanitation worker's children because they were her students. And the sanitation worker had a vested interest in the teacher because he or she was their child's teacher. Same thing with the doctor. It's a circulation of of resources. It's a mutual reliance upon different things. But the idea of being exposed to white educational institutions and being exposed to the way they do things is something to behold, because we learn that the most lucrative and most important thing that you will ever purchase in your life is a home. So when we come out of PWIs, we have in our minds now, I got to buy a home and it's going to grow in interest. It's going to do boom, 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 boom. Never do we factor in what that's going to do within our community.
Mm.
So there you go.
Wow. So we actually did it to ourselves. We shot ourselves in the damn foot because we wanted to be closer to the enemy.
I mean, to be fair to them, I think that what ended up happening for us is that we confused the ability to live away from our own kind, the ability to go to a Sears, a Crest, a Woolworths with the need to do it.
Mm.
Now, we had every right as Americans to be able to go to those places. Yet at the exact same time, do we have a need to do it? Because every dollar that you're going to spend in those places is a dollar that is not going to be spent within your community. There's a great movie, Lackawanna Blues. At the end of Lackawanna Blues, it's about Lackawanna, New York, and how all these Southern Black folk migrate, and they stay with Nanny, who is sort of almost like a way station for them to transition to life outside of the South. At the very end, Nanny's old, and you have Hill Harper. He's her adopted son who's walking down the street. And you can finally see what Lackawanna Blues looks like in the post-integration period and the post-segregated period. And he says this. He says, in our hurry to integrate, we never took a moment to recognize that every time a white door opened, a black one closed.
Mm.
And therein is where the problem is. That here you have situations where Black folk mistook the need, with the ability, and that did us in, especially economically. And then when you factor in, you have situations where Black folk feel as if they haven't moved on up like the Jeffersons until they're living, on the East Side. Right. Instead of staying within their community and uplifting their community. But let's be fair to them. Their communities are rife with prostitution, drug abuse, poverty, and those things produce a dysfunctional culture that anyone with good sense is not going to want their children around.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Wow. I think, Doc, and I could be wrong, I don't have no actual facts, but I'm just thinking that the crime problem didn't get outrageous until after Black Flight, after the doctors, the lawyers, the teachers, after they got out, then actually Black crime became a serious problem.
Well, but I mean, think about it logically, that just by virtue of them, of the I call them citizens, virtue of the citizens leaving, that's going to lead to just numbers wise a escalation of crime and what have you. But I agree with what it is that you're saying. You have to remember that
Mm.
that population of individuals, the educated population, these sober-minded Negroes, as some people would refer to them, those who are running businesses and they're the entrepreneurs and what have you, they are a stabilizing force within the community.
Mm-hmm.
And we can never forget how important and how central the Black church is,
Mm.
because the Black church is running things. That's where Black folk are at.
Mm-hmm.
And for those who were poor, impoverished, who needed assistance, there was in many ways a demand coming out of the church that if you needed resources, you needed help, you needed to bring them kids down here to this church, so that and join the church rolls, so that we can build up a better family for you guys. We can teach you guys some things. And there's also, because you have the entrepreneurial class, you have the business class attending the same church as poor people. I remember being in a church service, and a woman got up and she talked about how difficult it had been for her and her children in her life, and how she had a drug addiction and she was trying to get her life right. She had been clean for, I don't remember how long, she said, but she was looking for a job. She was trying to get a job. And a lady stands up from across the church and goes to the mic. And the lady says, "I'm so and so and so and so from some company." And she says, "And I recognized you from the moment that you stood up. You came down to our company and you filled out a job application." And the lady says, "Yeah, yeah, I did." She says, "Well, on Monday morning at about 9 o'clock a.m., you're going to get a call from me. I'm going to hire you." So you have that working. And let's be very clear. How many people do we know who got their jobs based upon knowing someone? Okay.
Yeah.
You got your job based upon knowing someone. So
Yeah.
if you separate that to use modern colloquialism, if you separate that plug from what it is that you need, you can't contact the plug, there's no hope. You're in a pool with 3,000 other applicants. So in many ways, the removal, I'm not going to call it removal, the decision of the Black middle class to go and try something different and to have that movement be encouraged by their families,
Mm-hmm.
served as a detriment to our community, a significant detriment.
Wow. We did it to our damn selves. So we're going to look at how the problems that he had, did the problems overtake him, or did he beat them? The Glenville uprising and the backlash that followed punctured the early hope around his election. White business and political elites who once backed him grew hostile or even cautious. The police, already resisted to reform, became openly antagonistic after he tried to change their culture and after his Glenville decision, limiting his ability to control street level behavior. Doc, should he have just fired the police chief and whoever the hell else that's giving him backup? Why is it? And this is the thing that pisses me off, right? Why is it when Black people get into office, they want to be so goddamn moral and just and right to the same damn demons that was crucifying your Black ass just yesterday? Now you want to be the morally right. Oh, I don't want to do that to them because it's wrong. Fuck that. Do it to their ass.
But what are the consequences of doing it to them? It guarantees that opposition that is working against you already, that there's no hope in repairing that relationship. That's what that guarantees. Okay. So now you're going to have to deal with the other issue. And that other issue is it's the John F. Kennedy, Richard Nixon dilemma. Do you have enough Black support, or will you increase your Black support to be able to pull this thing off by raising the temperature of your opponents against you? That's what it comes down to. I don't think that Carl Stokes for a moment didn't necessarily want to fire them. I think that what Carl Stokes did was say, can we hold this together a little bit? And we could probably deal with this during the next administration. It's a political decision. It's a political play. The problem with that political play, and I'm sure that you will agree with this, is quite simply, there ain't nothing that you can say or do that's going to cause these people to fall in line and support you. After they reach a point where they say they're done, there's nothing he should have went ahead and fired them, and then went before the Black community and said, look, I'm your man. They step out of line, I'm going to smack them down.
Mm-hmm.
And said it in a Jasmine Crockett voice,
Mm-hmm.
with some other slick, words involved in it. Maybe then you can rally more of the Black vote to come out. I think it was a political decision.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And I think by us not making the right decisions on stuff like that, we lose each and every time. And the losses, Doc, get bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, accountability has to come in some place. Like, just look at what Christine Williams saying. Most Black churches in Houston, Texas are, she got the crying symbol. Most of these churches are greedy for money and do very little for the community where these churches are. Very few Black churches are really helping. So it goes back, Doc, to responsibility. Do the church have a responsibility for the community that it's in? Or do the church only have responsibility to those tithes paying members? Where is the responsibility?
I'm measuring my words in saying this. The moral argument is that the church has responsibility for the community.
Mm-hmm.
In the real world, the church does not even have responsibility for its dues paying members. The church is an institution that serves a purpose of inspiration. That's how it has acted and behaved and been for the longest time now. And that's a sad situation. However, the position of the Black church that we hope for, that we think that this is the Black church at its best, those old guard leaders are now gone. The church is now fully a business. I have a cousin, my cousin Tasha. She's married to a pastor. They have a church as well. But Tasha studied church administration, funding, or financing. That's where they are now. And unfortunately, it appears from where I'm sitting, it appears as if what Christine Williams is saying about, yes, they do have a moral responsibility, but come on, we all know that it is about who's who within the church. Everybody, when they say that God is no respecter of person, that don't apply to that church. I will never forget this. It's one of the reasons why I don't like this cat. Ralph Douglas West, Ralph Douglas West Jr., Church Without Walls. Pastor West is cool with me. Okay, one of the greatest preachers that I've ever heard. But his son, I was at the gym working out, and a guy that looks exactly like Pastor West walked by. And I mean, he looked exactly like him. So much that I said, anybody ever told you that you look like Pastor West? And he looked at me and he says, yeah, a lot of people tell me that. He said, I'm Pastor Ralph Douglas West. I was like, oh, okay, and it's the Church Without Walls, 5-6 services, major church service, and how you look at somebody and you can say, oh yeah, they was raised around some Negras. Okay, Pastor West is one of those type of cats. Okay, so much that when the doors of the church is open, you ain't supposed to be walking. These people ignored Pastor West one Sunday. He said, so y'all gonna just do what y'all want to do, huh? Okay, you gonna just keep on walking. Okay, well, look, I hope you get in an accident when you get in the parking lot in your car. I was like, oh no. But so I see him at the gym, and we're chopping it up. We have a brief conversation, no more than 3-4 minutes. His son comes, who, if you want to, you want to see something incredible, type his son's name into the search engine. But his son comes over to get his daddy, and this is what he said. Hey, it's some people over here. I want you to meet some important people. I have never forgotten that. Okay. And it sticks with me to the point. I'm a Taurus. So if you cross me, we done. Okay. So it stuck with me to the point that if I go into the Church Without Walls and his son was preaching, I would get up and leave. He can't preach, number one, and number two, he can't. I don't like him. So that's like 3 strikes. Even though y'all probably think y'all only heard 2, that's actually 3 strikes. Okay, so the idea of the church being this neutral, community-based entity, it ain't been that way for probably at least 30 years, if not 40. It's no longer that. And a part of that is that who holds the pastor's feet to the fire in regards to helping the community? He's going off to some theological seminary. They didn't have a course on uplifting the Black community or social responsibility or even an ethics course, probably, considering how some of these cats act. So that's an issue. Do they have responsibility? Yeah, they got one, a moral one. But do they do it and do they honor it? No.
And Doc, when we look at these politicians, are they heroes or are they warriors? How would you?
Heroes or warriors?
Yeah, let's deal with Carl first. Is he a hero or is he a warrior?
You're saying warrior?
Yes.
I would say he's a warrior. I don't see him as a hero. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, the hero survives and the hero accomplishes his goals. He's not, he would, to use Hollywood movies, he's not a Marvel superhero. He would be more like, let's say, who would be a good person? He would be like Maximus from the Gladiator. who ultimately is slain in the end. He was a warrior. He fought through. You don't get to the position that these men are in without being warriors. Are they inspirational? Certainly. But warriors, not. But warriors, yes.
Okay, definitely. Christine said, wasn't Pastor West's son out there doing sexual activity that has brought a scandal in the church community?
See, that's Christine Williams. I want you to get hooked up with Twin Pyramid because y'all are like-minded people. Okay, y'all need to find y'all way to each. Both of y'all in Houston. Y'all need, he left me out during the power outage. Okay, damn near sent me pictures of him eating turkey legs from the turkey leg hut, which he refused to get me any. And now you done brought up. Now I what did I say? I said if you Google his name, some things would come up. That was as far as I was willing to go with the situation. That was the third strike right there. We're gonna be honest. I didn't want to put the third one out there. Yeah, I have no reason to believe that the reports are wrong. But yeah, he was out there dirty macking. Yeah, he was out there dirty macking. He was doing it and wound up the lady that he gave the disease to.
Oh my God.
She was slick because she taped him on the phone apparently of him saying that yeah I knew I had it and I gave it to I got it from my baby mama. She gave it to me. Yeah, and she got some money behind that. Yeah, all you gotta do is type in Ralph Douglas West Jr. and there, and she got more than she didn't get no couple $1,000s either. She got some money behind that. Yeah. So now, Ms. Williams, you understand what the third strike was. I didn't want to say what the third strike was, but yeah, she successfully sued him. All you do is type, go to Google. It'll pop up. It'll pop up. Making the church look bad. I said, and then that name, Ralph Douglas, was named after his daddy. You just kind of like, oh, bruh.
Wow.
So, yeah, that is true. From what the papers say. From what the courts have said, that is true.
All right, we're going to watch a real quick video on Carl, and we'll be right back. Let's see. Here we go.
The city was in transition. And how do you transition out of what appeared to be more glory days? As a Rust Belt city, Cleveland was in decline.
I started out with a mother who had only a 4th grade education, but my mom always kept telling us, if you get an education, you can make it in this country.
Their chief tool was education. Remember that Carl was a high school dropout. And he was a street tough guy. He was a street smart guy. But he did his GRE, and then he made his way through law school. And it was that educational background that made it for him.
His sights were always on politics and being involved in politics. So his first run for office was a state legislature. He won. He was the first Black Democrat to be in the state legislature. He was very outgoing. He was very charismatic. He was very people-oriented. And he wasn't fearful of going out and talking to people and challenging the status quo.
Don't vote for me because I'm a Negro. But God knows, don't vote against me because I'm a Negro.
Remember about his victory at that time is that a majority of Cleveland was still quote unquote white. African Americans were not yet a majority. Cleveland became front page news. And not front page, this is before anything that we're dealing with now in the world of social media. And this is globally important news that goes out.
I have no ambitions for office higher than mayor. I wanted to be mayor because I felt I understood some of the problems that afflict us in the central city.
The public responded to him favorably in the beginning, but they also gave him this aura that he needed to be the savior.
1969, there was another urban rebellion in the Glenville neighborhood. Glenville shootout, Glenville riots. Carl was able to bring peace to the streets by removing all the white policemen and patrolling the streets with Black leaders and the remaining number of African-American cops. And that built a lasting enmity between him and the police department. He started a program called Cleveland Now. He realized, as other Clevelanders were beginning to realize, that in the 1960s the city was in decline. The Cleveland Now program raised money both from foundations and businesses, and his goal was to use this private money to make up for the holes left in the funding and to make Cleveland a better city for everyone.
He was ahead of his time, and he studied the issues. He was prepared, and that he didn't come to the moment because African Americans alone voted him into office.
Forward-thinking mayor. He brought more African Americans into City Hall and into city government jobs than there had ever been before. He opened the doors for many young Black professionals in governance.
His mission were to affect change in a city for all of its residents, and not just for African American. But he also stressed that he was not going to run from making changes that affected African Americans who were decades behind in this city.
He and his brother were major figures in American history, and that they came out of and succeeded perhaps because they were born in this city is a measure of the potential this city has.
I want to stay in Cleveland. I want to try to be a mayor. I want to try to come to grips and to make some substantive impact on those pervasive, grievous problems that we have. I know that's going to take a long time, a lot of resources, and a willingness on the part of whomever is at the head of the city to not pander to political expediency. I'm willing to do that, and I'm going to stay there as long as they let me stay.
Hello, it's Kennedy for Reason TV.
All right. So there we have it with Brother Carl. And he won his 1969 running on his concrete first-term wins and his disciplined citywide coalition. But the Greenville fallout, money problems, and nonstop institutional warfare convinced him not to run again in 71. I don't know, Doc, do you know what militants got the money to get the guns to kill up the police?
No, not off the top of my head. No. I would imagine it would be some organization that had enough wherewithal, enough infrastructure to apply for grants. You have to remember that was not uncommon during the 1960s. The Black Panther Party for Self-Defense's school, it was heavily reliant upon government dollars, upon grants. They had written grants, and they were able to keep the school going. And many people have said that was really the undoing of the Panthers. And it is that Huey P. Newton, who was addicted to crack cocaine, was able to get access to the checkbook for those grants. And that led to significant damage and blow to what the Panthers were able to do.
Wow. Very, very interesting, Brother Carl Stokes. Now we're going to move on to the next one. Maynard Jackson.
My man.
So now Maynard Jackson, he was the mayor of Atlanta, Georgia. Let's see. Maynard Jackson faced fierce resistance from white business elites, labor unrest, racial tension, and fear over crime and the Atlanta child murders, all while trying to transform Atlanta's power structure and economy. So I believe that he was the only mayor that had a mass killing of Black children, correctly?
Yep.
And so that was a big, I could imagine, that would have to be a big weight on his chest.
Can you imagine? Because, when he goes in, it was racial, without a doubt. Maynard Jackson's opponent, I remember this very well from documentaries. Maynard Jackson's opponent ran on a slogan of Atlanta is too young to die. Clearly, the insinuation was if you elect this Black man, he's going to kill Atlanta. And in many ways, Atlanta is able to achieve some things that are, it's almost unconscionable. On the one hand, Atlanta is the best place for Black folk to live. Black folk were making more money per capita in Atlanta during his administration than anywhere else in the nation. Yet at the exact same time, Atlanta became the murder capital of America. Tale of two cities, both of them Black.
Wow. Very, very, very interesting. So some of the things that Maynard Jackson had problems that he faced as mayor, he demanded that minority and women-owned firms get a major share of city contracts, often cited as 25 to 30% targeted instead of roughly 1% that they had been getting. So that's a very big increase to take it from 1 to 30% of government contracts, city contracts.
Affirmative action, reparations.
Atlanta's white business establishment charged his set-aside policies were illegal, resisted airports' contracting demands, and effectively blackballed him from local legal work after his second term. His emphasis on affirmative action and neighborhood participation produced a rift with parts of the white business community and some established political actors who felt he was moving too far, too fast, and being too Black.
Yeah, I mean, you have to remember that they have a monopoly upon those businesses and those business contracts. But when Maynard Jackson was elected, you see a lot of white business people throw kind of a hissy fit, and they move their business interests outside of Atlanta proper. So that money is, Maynard Jackson's administration is saying, no, this money needs to be utilized to uplift Atlanta. You left Atlanta. So if you want this contract, you're going to have to subcontract such a percentage out of a major percentage out of this contract. And either you do it and get the contract or you don't. And once again, they're focused upon how much money they're losing versus what they're actually earning by receiving this government contract to work to build the Atlanta airport. So yeah, he's in a rough situation. So here you have a man who is battling about hundreds of millions of dollars dealing with the idea of affirmative action and set-asides and what have you. And Atlanta is filled with slums and squalor. So much that Maynard Jackson actually does this sort of publicity thing where on one hand, he fights Muhammad Ali in a charity boxing match. But on the other hand, he goes to stay with a family in the projects. He goes and lives with them for a little bit. Yeah. For a couple of days.
So is that where Cory Booker get his living in the projects idea from?
I have no idea where Cory Booker got it from, but more than likely, yeah. More than likely, yeah.
Now, it also says that in 1977, sanitation workers and municipal employees went on strike for higher wages. Jackson refused to yield and fired over 900 striking workers and hired replacements, which created deep anger among many Black workers and unions. So, you know, we had a similar thing up here in Philly where the sanitation workers went on strike and trash was backed up and looking very ugly. You know, and it's like, go to work or you're going to lose your job.
Yeah, but see that they're in those moments right there. That's where the rubber meets the road, to be honest with you, because now you need to show and prove. Are you the mayor of Atlanta or the mayor of Black folks in Atlanta? Do you buckle and do you go ahead and just say, okay, well, look, y'all got me. I'm gonna have to work with you, or do you look at the numbers, because that's what's driving this more than likely, and have the courage to come out and tell Black folk, listen, we don't have the money, we can't pay you. Which do you do? And for Jackson, it's once again it's why the building of the airport, subcontracting, all of that work means so much. Because with white flight occurring especially from the business class, they've taken their taxable dollars with them. And so you have all these Black folk flooding Atlanta who are system intensive, and you got less money to balance the budget. And here you had a sanitation workers striking. What are you going to do? And he stood strong.
I'd have fired their ass my damn self too. I really don't like unions myself personally.
Okay.
And this, I had worked a job, or I was about to work a job, and they had a union, and so they would force you that you don't have a choice. You got to be a part of the union, and you know you got to pay the dues and do all this stuff, and it's like, I don't want to be a part of no union, but they made you to be a part of the union. It was part of their agreement that any new employee has to be a part of the union. But then when the union go on strike, they can't even afford to pay the people enough to stay on strike. So what the hell is all the money going to in the first place then?
Administrative costs, brother. Administrative costs.
They better administrate their ass back on that job.
See that's like I said, I was a steel worker. My father was a steel worker for every job that I knew that he had. It was a steel mill. He claims he had some other jobs, but I don't. They must have been so early that I don't remember them. but we had to join a union as well. And that was my initial exposure to a union. And see, my experience was different from yours because here I am, 18, 19 years old, I would be in the general labor pool. So if anybody called off, they would grab me or somebody out the general labor pool to go and work this job. And the job was always a step up. Here I am, think about 18, 19 years old. I'm working double shifts as a plumber's helper. I don't know nothing about plumbing or nothing like that. I pushed a cart that had all the tools on it. I was making $75 an hour. So my initial exposure, I was like, wait a minute, hold up. They broke it down. They were like, yeah, you just made $1,300 today. Take a young person who has never really had a job before, and you give them $1,300 for one day's worth of work. And if I ended up on what we call the hot strip, if I was on the hot strip, look here, I not only got paid by the hour, but I also got paid according to the tonnage that was produced. So every ton of steel that we produced, I got paid for it. So it was a completely lucrative job for me. And that's the reason. And I know it's because my first experience was so financially beneficial. That's why I'm pro-union.
Interesting. And so it also says that the sanitation conflict and other labor issues exposed him to criticism from both fiscal conservatives for cost and disruptive, and labor/black activists for being too hardlined once in power.
Yes. Serving two masters.
Then they said he was dealing with race policing and administration. He pushed to desegregate and diversify the police department, which still had ties to the Ku Klux Klan, and this led to charge clashes with the parts of the police force and their supporters. A high-profile police promotion scandal in the late 70s became a racially sensitive crisis, culminating in the suspension of police chief and controversial over his management of the department. His broader effort to smash the white-dominated governing regime meant he consistently navigated tense race relations with both white conservatives and segments of the Black community who disagreed with his tactics. Is there ever a time, Doc, when you fighting white folks, you don't have to fight the Black folks as well? God damn.
Not if there is some spoils to war. You know, if there's something, a political concession that can be secured, if there's financial concession that can be won. No, you're in it, and that's what it comes down to. There's really no getting around that. It's a job that if you're a just man, you would not wish this job and these duties upon your worst enemy, because it's number one, a thankless job. And number two, it's going to kill you if you don't, if you're unlucky, it will kill you. I mean, look at the physical toil that we've seen every American president undergo. Go look at them before they entered that office, and then take another look at them towards the end of their administration, and see what they look like.
Exactly.
That is you can't be sleeping at night. You
No.
can't. There's nothing but problem after problem after problem, and then there's going to be some more problems on top of those problems, and that's kind of becomes your lot in life by having those types of positions, and it really, and this is sort of one of my running things that I say and I think, what type of ego could you have that would make you want that job? What could be going on within you that makes you say, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna go get a job that is gonna cause everybody to hate me because I want to be on TV every once in a while. You have to be darn near insane to want something like that.
We're going to watch this short clip of the beginning of talking about Maynard Jackson, and I found it to be very, very interesting.
I believe that politics is the last viable means of nonviolent social change for Black people in this country. I think it is so fundamentally important that it work, that it requires of us to make unusual sacrifices.
I want to stop it right there, Doc, and just pause it for a second, because I think as far as Maynard is concerned, he just answered the question that you asked about why would you want to be mayor. And I think that our people really need to understand that point, that look, this is you're getting out to vote, you're running for office. This is the last stage of your peaceful protest. This is it.
This is it.
This is it. And this is something that I believe we miss because it's never taught like this. It's never taught like this. And I think it really needs to be taught like this so that the people can get a better understanding of what this thing really is. Now, Doc, besides us, having our own schools and having our own curriculums to have that taught, where else should this be taught at?
Within the homes, within barbershops, within beauty shops. One of the gravest problems that we have as a community is that our people are silly-minded. We like to be titillated. We like to be entertained. We want to sit up and we want to see what's going on this internet show. We want to see, what's happening here. What's this and what's that, versus getting down to what is really important and dealing with those important substantive issues. Let's be honest that a political campaign is not the sexiest thing in the world. It's not the most entertaining thing in the world. However, the spoils that come off of that are what we need to be focused upon. Fred Hampton, I always use Fred Hampton's great quote where he says this about the entire political system. He says that you have to understand that politics is nothing but war without bloodshed, and war is nothing but politics with bloodshed. We are despite being in a nation state, a republic, make no mistake about it, that within that nation state, every group, however people decide that they're going to put themselves together as a group, every group is battling other groups for political resources, for the right to exist in certain geographical areas, for the right to breathe, for the right to have clean drinking water. That's what it is. That's the big game. That's the competition right there. And we're the only ones, for my money, we're the only ones who are out here playing. We're more concerned with, well, I should be allowed to wear my bonnet out in public. Who the hell cares? Who cares? That's a small-minded thing. And our people are too small-minded in regards to a whole lot of things.
That's true.
You know, it's one of those where, and we see your President Trump, we see Trump do this often. He creates a diversion. You looking right at him, and he don't want you looking at him, so he throws a rock over there, and now you sitting over here like, where'd that rock go? Did that rock fall? Did it go down? And you didn't completely forgot.
Exactly.
Keeping the main thing, the main thing.
That's right.
So the idea of where should it be discussed? You should be as politically aware as devout Christians are, devout Muslims, when scripture talks about be always in prayer, be fervent in your prayer. That's how you need to be looking at this. You need to look at it from a standpoint that everything is political.
Right.
From where you send your children to buy their shoes and their clothes, to the school that they go to where you buy your fried chicken because you didn't feel like cooking that night. It's all political.
All of it.
And until you get that in your mind, until you understand that the privilege to go, I don't care if you're K through 12, I don't care if you're 13 through 16, as far as the educational level, to have the opportunity to go and study and to learn to do something positive in this world is an opportunity that should not be missed. Other people are not missing it. Our children are. That's a problem. So where should it be taught? It should be taught everywhere, constantly, without a doubt.
Definitely. Let's pick back up.
Maynard Jackson came at a time that we were going from just protest to political power.
With an estimated black-white ratio of approximately 50-50, we have a unique chance to show the world that men and women and children of goodwill and courage can share the front yards of hope and the backyards of human understanding.
He forced us to live together as brothers, or we could have perished together as fools.
In '65, the Voting Rights Act was passed. And I think that in '68, when Dr. King was killed, it gave a new energy that we wanted political power. And we exercised our right to vote.
Today's victory, and it is a victory.
He was the conductor of the political symphony of Atlanta, Georgia.
Maynard was never a politician. He was a statesman.
He became a statesman because he evaluated his service not based on the elections he'd won, but the people he'd helped.
Always clean, always immaculate, always mayoral, always regal, always appropriate.
Maynard Jackson was the Moses of his time.
He was a hard man to please.
He's not Jesus. The water's not going to part. He's going to make some mistakes.
This was Maynard Jackson.
A few months ago, its citizens elected a man they thought could best do the job as mayor of Atlanta.
I will be governed
He was born to be great.
by what is my conviction,
He was taught to be great.
that I will uphold and support. He's the city's first black mayor. His name is Maynard Jackson. So help me God. Congratulations.
The space of time when life combines to create legacy.
to the living flag that will change the outlook of our future. This is the moment in time we live in the euphoric feeling of our people forever. When a man stands for something, they call him hero. I call him warrior. Maynard Jackson. It's a reason for the essence of life. When you choose to do what Mother Nature has planned, you will be victorious. There's no end to your energy. There's no end to your synergy. You will forever be in the minds and grooves of the streets of Atlanta. Maynard Jackson. Maynard Jackson. Maynard Jackson.
We are the city that refuses to be diverted from the positive path that stretches clearly before us.
Atlanta has had 5 African-American mayors, starting with Maynard Jackson. Maynard served for 12 years, and in those 12 years really set a foundation for the political opportunities for other African-Americans and women and people of color. So he really had this strong sense that we had an obligation. Whom much is given, much is required. Maynard lived that and knew that.
Maynard was my nephew and the first boy in the family. There were 3 little girls, 3 granddaughters. When Maynard was born, my father had a fit. He said, a little man-child. We got a man-child. And we made a pilgrimage from Atlanta out to Dallas, Texas to see this baby. And everybody was taking a gift. I felt like we were going to see, like the Magi, taking a gift to the baby, you know. My father's gift was a pocket watch, 21 Jewel Hamilton pocket watch. And I was furious. I said, why are you taking a watch to a baby? He's in diapers. And he said, because time is important and he must know that.
We were in Dallas, Texas. He got a Superman suit from somewhere. I guess Mom and Daddy bought it for Christmas. We had a balcony on that house, on a 2nd floor. And he stood up on the edge and was getting ready to jump off like this because he was Superman. And I always make the analogy between that and what he really did in life. I mean, he did a lot of Superman stuff in life, to me.
I first met the Jackson family in 1945. They came to Atlanta from Dallas, Texas. It was Reverend Jackson and his wife, Irene Dobbs Jackson. And he came to Atlanta to become the 3rd pastor at Friendship Baptist Church. And she became a part of the staff at Spelman College, his wife, Irene. She was fluent in French and she was a musician. They brought to Atlanta with them 5 children. At that time, Sandra was 13, Jono was 9, Maynard was 7, Carol Ann was 4, and Connie was 1.
We're just going to speed it up here a little bit.
When I was growing up, Atlanta was much, much smaller, much quieter. This was in the 1930s. It only had about 30 square miles. And of course, it was totally separated.
He finally realized that this was it. He was now the mayor of the city of Atlanta. Black people thought that he was going to walk on water and that everything was going to be 100% right. And that was his challenge, to make everything right.
I mean, when Maynard went into office, the first thing he did was he took inventory of where all of the city's money was being housed.
Right after the election, I think it was, it couldn't have been more than a couple of weeks. At that time, we couldn't find any African Americans that were on the boards of the local banks in Atlanta. The
fact that Maynard had called some of the bank presidents together to try to encourage them to put African Americans on the boards of their bank. And there was one whose name, it doesn't, but I believe he was over the CNS Bank or something at the time. Back then, that was the big bank. But the statement basically was that, you know, he wasn't going to tell them who was going to be on the boards of their bank. And his reaction was, you're right, I can't tell you who's going to be on the board of your bank, but what I can tell you is that we're going to withdraw the city money from your bank.
And you'd have these dignified businessmen coming over and sitting down with the mayor and says, Mayor, there's just no blacks qualified. And that would set him off in private. But he was so mannerly and such a gentleman that he would not confront them. But once they left the room, you know, you'd hear what he really felt.
Chairman of one of the banks called him and said, you know, Maynard, okay, we see what you're saying. You know, we'll diversify our bank board. Who do you want us to put on the board? And Maynard was like, oh, no, you're not going to get me that way. I'm not going to tell you who to put on the bank board. I want to see the bank board diversified.
The paper would never ask, what you going to do if they don't do it? He said, I'm sure the banks in San Francisco or California would like to have the money, but we're going to get a black on every bank board in this town, how small or big it is.
And then all of a sudden, black people started showing up on the board banks because they wanted to make sure that they continued to have an opportunity to do business with the city. When Maynard first got elected, or when it was obvious that he was going to be the mayor, they gave a contract to the police chief, some ridiculous contract that would have gone through Maynard's period of time. And it was a real racist guy that was the police chief at the time.
I'm not politically motivated at all. And as far as I'm concerned, there's no politics involved. What I'm trying to do is eliminate undue political influence in the police department.
Him was a part of the old guard. You see, if you were a clansman, you could get a job on the police force. That didn't start changing until the late 40s, early 50s. John Inman was a relic of that past.
There was a march, and he had let dogs loose on Hosea Williams at one point when the mayor was out of the city. The image of dogs scaring demonstrators and snarling nearby was unacceptable. And the mayor fired the chief.
And so he highly resented Maynard Jackson becoming the mayor, and for all practical purposes, he was going to defy his boss.
And Maynard came up with, which what I thought was genius. You know, he came up with, okay, well, if I can't replace this police chief, I'm just gonna put somebody over the police chief. And he came up with this concept of having a public safety commissioner.
We need to have a top-notch administrator, and preferably someone who does have a background in law enforcement. Now, that is not a statutory requirement, but it is clearly one of my preferences.
And all of the public safety positions reported to that individual, including this racist police chief. And basically that guy's job was to count paper clips somewhere, and Reggie Eves became the public safety guru.
Because I'm also committed to the same principle, and that is to provide safety for the citizens of this city.
Maynard put a lot of pressure on him to cut crime in 6 months and to do the things that he wanted him to do. And it wasn't possible, so much so that Reggie Eves, Commissioner Eves, he fell to the pressure.
On Saturday, some 300 Atlanta police officers are scheduled to take an examination for some 21 open positions for the rank of sergeant. The competition is stiff. It's the first time in years that the examination has been given.
He wanted to promote more Black police officers into managing positions and higher levels in the department. But you had to pass a test in order to do it. And so the cheating scandal happened.
I'm calling today on Public Safety Commissioner Reginald Eves to submit his resignation to the mayor immediately. Only then can we seek an end to the continued public turmoil that has resulted in a shattering of confidence in the police operations of our city.
The incident with Reggie Eves about the cheating scandal in the police department was probably one of the most difficult.
What White Fowler did. to issue a statement which this afternoon resulted in polarizing the city.
That Maynard had to deal with.
Whitefowler told me he was going to call for Reginald Eves' resignation. I asked him not to. He said, I got to do it, got adamant about it. And yet he had the absolute temerity to issue a statement which this afternoon resulted in polarizing the city. And I shall never forget what Whitefowler did.
What does that have to do with Reginald Eves? What happens to him now?
Now, Doc, I don't know what happened to the video while the video picture just went out, but for a little bit of time that we got left, I wanted to talk about what Maynard did in that situation. He couldn't fire the police chief, so he appointed a black man to be over the police chief, over the whole damn police department. And the nigga broke. He couldn't take the damn pressure. He fucking broke. What kind of hell is this? We can't hear you, Doc.
Therein lies the danger of hooking some folk up. Therein lies the danger. Because if I put you in this position and you fail, they're coming for me.
Exactly.
And, you know, I remember a situation my mother used to talk to me about. She had got one of my aunts a job at the place where she works at.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, now, if she doesn't show up for work, then white folk come to me and say, now, you do know she didn't come to work today. And my mom grew so tired of it that she said, you do know that she don't live with me, right? I have no idea why she didn't come to work. Okay. We don't live together. And so, but when you, and it's those things and those occurrences that happen that causes people to really not hook other folk up, if that makes sense. Everyone wants you to look out for them. But can you do that? And if you do that, at what peril does that come to you? And it's a significant risk, especially when you're dealing with a situation where you know and everybody knows that they're waiting on the mayor to stub his toe.
Right.
Once he does that, oh, then look at it. Look at this right here. Look at this. You know, and all of the things that go along with white folk being all up on you. All the things that go along with that are going to become very apparent and manifested. So, yeah. Was it a misstep by Maynard Jackson? In hindsight, it was. Was it the correct thing to do? I would say, yeah. Was it a courageous thing to do? Yes. But you were kind of betrayed by one of your own.
Yeah. Damn. Well, that's a hell of a thing. That's a hell of a thing. He fighting as hard as he can fight and doing things and put you in there, you gonna fucking quit because of the pressure. Damn, what the hell you think what do you think he was getting into? A goddamn popcorn party?
No, but I think that the position is alluring. The power that would come with it is alluring. But do people ever factor in that really what you're signing up for is a street fight? And if you don't, you can be surprised when you get up in there, because there's some people who are blatant with their opposition to you being there, especially the way that you were brought in, and they're going to do everything to get rid of you.
That's for sure. That is for sure. Well, we are at our time, and we didn't make it over to our last, the Mayor for Life, Marion Barry, or finish with Brother Jackson. Are you free, Doc, on Thursday? Can we go Thursday evening?
Yeah. I'm free Thursday, as long as I got advance warning and I set an alarm for myself, a reminder. Yeah, I'll be here. I done got old, man. My mind is not what it used to be. You know, one of those things where ain't no telling, man, where, you know, if I don't have a visible reminder, you know, I know that people will, you know, they hesitate to call you, remind you, because they're kind of like, oh man, you know, I don't want to be a bugaboo, you know. You know, you have permission to call me, to remind me, send me a text earlier, hey, don't forget. You know, because I literally have to tell my wife, you know, I was like, yo, remind me I need to go out to work today. Like, all right, I got you, because I don't teach today, so it would usually be, you know, not mandatory for me to be out there.
Right.
Program I needed to participate in. So I had to, you know, go out. But that general reminder,
right,
great. And then I don't have anything that goes to my phone, like you know, anything. So unless you ring that phone, and if it's a work day, if I lectured that day, my phone is probably still turned off. The ringer is turned off. I always forget to turn it back on.
Definitely.
But the Lord ain't done with me yet. So yeah,
exactly.
Thursday we going. Look. I'm getting ready to give myself a note right now. You know. So Thursday, yeah, I'm good. You want to run it back? You want to deal with something on Thursday?
Most definitely, because I want to finish this up. Definitely. So, Doc, on since we made it just to the beginning of Maynard Jackson, but we discussed Stokes in very great detail. Now, would you say his 2 terms in office, because he didn't run for a third because he saw that the to win was too great. He didn't think he would be able to do it, so he didn't run a third term. But do you think that history has prescribed him his proper place?
Oh no.
No. What do you think his proper place should be?
Maynard or Carl Stokes?
Stokes.
The man who ushered in modern Atlanta. I think that he should be remembered as that guy that ushered in what we know as modern Atlanta, because it's during Stokes's tenure that Atlanta's able to snatch away from Harlem the moniker and the title of being Black America's capital, the capital of Black America. Everyone flocks to Atlanta. By the 1980s, it becomes the Black Mecca, to be honest with you. That is due to his infrastructure, his leadership, the idea of having it's very similar to Marion Barry, having the unmitigated gall to stand up to white power, which is a major thing for a Black person to do, because they're going to cut you down eventually, because there's going to come a moment where what other groups, sort of like what we saw with this last presidential election, it's enough for a white man to stand up in front of his community and issue hollow promises and things that he knows that he ain't gonna do. And anybody with good sense recognize that can't happen. Like, I'm gonna end the war in Ukraine in one day. Now you know that that's a lie. But white solidarity, the intellectual part of that, the addiction to whiteness, causes them to get something way above and beyond the benefit of the doubt. Black folk in general, especially Black politicians, are not going to receive that ever. Okay. And by the end of the first term, that Black winking the nod, yeah, I voted for that brother, that's gone. Because now they're evaluating you upon, were you able to fight back, reverse, destroy centuries of white supremacy in this nation that has been negatively affecting my household and me. And if you couldn't, what you in there for? You done. So you have an expiration date almost from the very beginning. If you're a Black politician, because Black folk are, and this may sound strange, but so many Black folk are, if we're being honest about it, are white-minded. And they're looking at their political leaders often, not all Black folk, but there's a significant population who are white-minded and are as, if not more, harsh towards Black people than white folk are.
Most definitely. Most definitely. You know, they said in the video that Maynard Jackson was born to be great. He was taught to be great. What does that really look, in your closing comments, can you add that in there? What does that process look like? Is it more than just, you know, ooh, when you grow up, you're going to be an important young man? Is it more than just that? What does that process look like? Can you address that in your closing comments?
Yeah. Once again, just happy to be here, man. You know, same message every week. You know, I love this space and love coming here. But what I'll say about that is creating a context for success. That's what that looks like. We should not look past the fact that the gift that his grandfather brought to him was a watch.
Right. Yes.
Because I want him to understand right now from the very beginning that time means something. That's a hell of a message that many people don't get their entire life. He got that as a baby. I remember being abroad. I took my son to Africa, and we're there with at One Africa, a place called One Africa, Sister Imacus. And it's sort of a transition point, kind of like what I was talking about with Nanny and Lackawanna Blues. A lot of African Americans who are transitioning to Ghana, they go to One Africa and stay for weeks, if not months. We're sitting there with some of the repatriated Black folk, and they're all retired. They're elders, and one of them said this about creating. You know, it applied to my son. She was addressing my son. She said, "It took me 70 years to get here, and that baby's here at the age of 8." She said, "You have no idea how this is going to affect him going forward." And I was like, you know what? She's right. She's absolutely, positively correct. So in saying that, him bringing that watch and the family, he being the first boy, I was the first boy in my family of the grandchildren. It's something that is usually different, but the creating of a context for greatness is deliberate, is thought out, okay? It is planned. You don't get a Maynard Jackson by happenstance. Now, a whole lot of people, and many of these people, let's be fair, many of these people are not educated folk, but they understand creating a springboard for you to go forward and for you to battle. They understand those things. They understand the importance of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So what I will say to that, in closing, is quite simply, we have to be very conscious, very cerebral, very, very, very intentional about what we expose our children to, what we allow them to participate in, and fight the urge, because I think that this is one of the building blocks and the key differences between Black folk and white folk. Their children are allowed to run wild and to explore the world because because they protect them after the incident.
Mm-hmm.
We put our kids within a corral and say, no, there's nothing that you don't you do that. Don't you get over here and you sit down. Don't you touch nothing when we go into the store. Don't you look at nothing when we go into the store.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're definitely afraid that white folk, most notably the criminal justice system, will utilize one misstep to destroy our children's lives. That's the best way that I can even put it. So it's deliberate, it's intentional, it's conscious. It's a plan to build strong men and strong women. And if we're not doing that, they're going to grow up like directionless weeds. And Lord knows that's what we're seeing right now.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Excellent. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to thank Twin Pyramid for showing up. Christina Williams, thank you for showing up. Brother Willie, thank you for showing up. And let's see, did I leave anybody else? No. And all of those that are watching that didn't post a comment, we want to thank you all for showing up as well. We ask you all to like, share, and spread the word out. And follow us again and come join us back here Thursday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central. And we'll be dealing with part 2 of the math of liberation, dealing with Stokes, Barry, and Jackson, the architects of Black power. And one I want to real quick, Doc, because I'm one that don't like to shout Black power, Black power. I don't believe in that bullshit. Now, these brothers, excluding from Mayor Barry, because I believe Mayor Barry was yelling Black power at one point, but they actually built Black power.
Yes. I mean,
the statement.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that for me, and I, he's a brother that, for my money, is so much fluff, very little substance. Umar Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
The problem that our people have is that, and ironically, I was watching a snippet of this. I turned it off, but it was White Men Can't Jump.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the scene where Woody Harrelson was talking to Wesley Snipes about how instead of just winning, Black folk want to look good while they're doing it. You got to win with style. It ain't enough to just get the win. I think that there's a lot to be said about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because, and Khalid Muhammad said that we are a rhythmic people. And so we have you have to approach Black folk with information plus inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
We are a people who enjoy entertainment. And so if you have someone who's up here rhetorically talking about Black power and what we gonna do and this and that appeals to a people who have been downtrodden for so long. It excites us. It's what Malcolm did. That, we getting ready to show them blah, 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 versus someone like Stokes, someone like Maynard Jackson, someone like Richard Hatcher, individuals who literally built a political infrastructure. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, they have been largely forgotten. And if they've been largely forgotten, they've been greatly ignored, and their contributions have been greatly ignored. So we got to find a balance with that. You know, you got to, I guess, get yourself to a point where you're inspiring and informing, and yet at the exact same time, the majority of your time is spent on institution building.
Exactly. All right. Thanks, Doc. We want to thank everybody for coming. Thank y'all for participating. We love y'all. And as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm going to kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
Peace.
Peace.
So you better get the message and get it straight.
You're gonna need some bridge work. It's simple as that.
Because we're living in judgment. We're living in implementation.